Summer might be over, but that doesn't mean your garden has to end as well. There are lots of ways that you can extend your garden well into the fall and winter, but today I'm going to keep it simple and talk about hardy herbs that you can grow outdoors right now. Depending on where you live, you may be able to extend your garden for months to come. So I'm going to give you 5 of my favorite cool weather herbs that you can grow outdoors this fall. Hey, I'm Nadia, and today I'm going to talk about some of the herbs that you can be growing in your garden even if the temperature is dropping. I've been watching the weather lately and I'm seeing that some people north of me are already getting snow in their forecast, which is crazy. But yes, that happens. It's fall. We're getting colder weather. All of us are. Some of us certainly colder than others. But that doesn't mean your garden has to come to an end. You can still be growing food even if you live in a northern climate. Where I live in southern Ontario, I still have a good month left until it starts dipping below freezing at night. And that is pretty much your indicator of whether or not your typical food will survive outside without any protection, is when nights start to get below freezing. So that's called your first frost date. And if you don't know what yours is, I'll provide a link down below this video so that you can find out what yours is, because that's really helpful to know at this time of year if you're going to be planting anything, whether that's new crops or whether you want to keep your garden going as long as you can. You kind of have an idea of when that's going to end. But you can be growing well beyond that date. I know a lot of people don't think that. They think that, okay, just because their tomatoes and their peppers are coming to an end, those lives are coming to an end, that doesn't mean that the whole garden will. There are lots of amazing fruits, or rather vegetables and herbs mostly, that will thrive even in the cold weather. In fact, some of them even do better in cold weather than they do in the summer. So I want to give you 5 herbs that you can put in your garden right now, whether you want to plant them from scratch and let them continue on for the rest of the season, or if you have them growing in your garden, know that these will do just fine and you don't have to worry about protecting them from the elements until it really starts to get cold. And that's usually well beyond that last frost date, or that first frost date in the fall. The first herb that I want to share with you is parsley, and parsley is amazing for handling the cold weather. I've had parsley in the ground well into the fall, even the early winter, without any protection, and it does just fine. It can handle those cold nights. The leaves won't turn brown, they won't shrivel up like some of the other herbs like basil and things like that. Basil can't handle any cold temperature, but the herbs that I'm talking to you about today, and parsley being the first of them, it can definitely handle some frosty nights. So parsley is one to include. If you like to cook, if you like to garnish your meals with anything, parsley is kind of a no-brainer. I think a lot of us love to use that herb in small or large quantities in our cooking. So definitely include that one in your fall garden. The second herb is thyme, and thyme is another really popular one in the fall. You see it in a lot of fall dishes. If you eat meat and you have chicken, let's say, a lot of roast chicken or things like that, they call for thyme and some of the other herbs that I'm talking about. But thyme is such a classic fall flavor, I feel like. And if you don't like, or you want to change up the traditional thyme that you may be used to in the grocery store, they have flavored or variations of thyme. They have lemon thyme, which I love. I grow that as well. They have lime thyme. There's all sorts of other kinds of thyme that you can try if you want a little bit of a switch from the traditional thyme. The next one is sage, and sage is a funny one. It's one that I have growing in my garden all year. It's a perennial, so it will come back in the spring and it will stay in my garden alive all summer and into the fall and then die back when it gets really cold. But it's funny, I don't ever try to cook with it in the middle of the summer. I only specifically look for recipes or use it in recipes in the fall for whatever reason. But I did actually make a recipe recently with zucchini blossoms. So if you do have zucchini in your garden and you have a sage plant, you have to try this recipe. It is so good. And it's vegan and gluten-free if that's important to you as well. So sage is an amazing one for the garden. The leaves are thick, so it can definitely handle those cold nights. Next up is chives, and chives are interesting. They are one of the first herbs to pop up out of my garden in the spring, and they are one of the last ones to die in the fall. So if you want an amazing herb that survives very well throughout the whole season, then chives are an amazing one to add to your garden. It's also a perennial, so it will come back each year, depending on where you live, but in most areas it will come back each and every year. And chives are fun because you can add them anywhere you would add onion. And I love to add them to potato salad, to pasta salad, anywhere where I don't want that really strong, potent onion flavor, especially if I'm going to eat it raw, like maybe top a sandwich or something like that with it. Chives are a really fun one to have in your garden. And the last herb is cilantro, and unlike the other herbs that I've been talking about, cilantro is an annual, so you do need to plant it each and every year. And cilantro is one that I can even plant in my garden now with 4 or 5 weeks left in my growing season, and I will still have cilantro throughout the fall and winter. Now, certainly not as much as if I had planted it a month ago, but it's definitely one that you can still be planting if you have a good length of your season left. I would say on average, if you have 3 to 4 weeks left in your growing season, and use that calculator in the link below in the description below if you don't know what yours is, but as long as you have 3 or 4 weeks left in your growing season, you can grow these herbs, even if you're planting it from seed. Now, yes, of course, you'd want to plant it a little bit earlier if you could, but don't sweat it, because you can definitely be getting these herbs, and if it's a perennial, it will come back in the spring and you'll have it all next year as well. So cilantro is a fun one. If you like Mexican food, certainly it's a good one to put in salsas and in that kind of food. So awesome one is cilantro. And in fact, I have even in December, last year, the year before in December, it had snowed and I wasn't expecting the snowfall. I hadn't covered my garden, and I pushed back all the snow and there was the bright green cilantro waiting for me. So it handled a foot of snow on top of those leaves, and it did just fine. So it's definitely a hardy one, I can tell you from experience. Don't let the cool weather stop you from producing food well into the fall and the winter. Good quality, organic, and local food can be really hard to come by at this time of the year. I know that my farmers markets are starting to dwindle down. Even the selection that is there is not nearly as much as there was in the summer. But there's no reason for that. There are so many amazing vegetables and herbs and even fruits that are abundant in the cool weather. So if you have your own garden, take advantage of that fact and grow with the seasons. And if you are growing any of your own food into the cool weather, let me know what they are. I'd love to hear what you're growing and what you're doing with them. And I've got plenty of other cool weather videos coming up. So if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, do that now to make sure that you do not miss a thing. And I hope you have a great week, and I will see you in the next one.